Greetings, friend, and welcome to the Between the Covers podcast, where we are working every day to remove the self-limiting beliefs that are preventing us from becoming the heroes of our own stories. I am Marcus Spar, and before we dive into our topic today, I just want to say thank you to James G., who left a review recently, and he says, Marcus courageously leads the way vulnerably and compassionately, diving into his story and helping others dive into theirs. Thank you so much for your kind words, James. I appreciate it. It is one of the things that helps me continue to show up and share what I'm learning. And if you are enjoying or gleaning anything valuable from this podcast, I would greatly appreciate it if you left a review, in particular on Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much. Today, we are going to talk about the concept of what's normal. This is something that I have conversations with my clients about a lot, of what is normal. Most of us growing up had this idea that our experiences were normal. For most of us, what we experienced growing up was normal. And yet, one of the things that I have been challenged by personally, and I have challenged others with as well, is that these things that are normal maybe aren't as normal as they should be or they could have been. In terms of things being normal, one of the first things I have to say is, who defines what is normal? Typically, when we are looking at something that is normal, what we are looking at is something that is defined by people who are privileged, they are in a position of power, they have some kind of authority, they are typically cisgendered white men, and sometimes even cisgendered white women, and they are fully capable and able individuals that the systems that we operate and navigate our world with were created by them, and so everything is normal for them. Then we get into the concept of minorities, those who have different sexual orientations, and individuals who are not as able. They may have some kind of physical or mental ailment that is preventing them from being able to navigate the world effectively, because people who don't have those disabilities were the ones who created society and structures. Now, before I start sounding incredibly pessimistic about all of this, one of the things that I do want to acknowledge is there have been incredible strides, especially for individuals with disabilities. We have made great strides in education and employment for individuals who are struggling with what is considered normal in terms of reading level, in terms of mental faculties, in terms of those who are able and therefore are setting the standards. Yet, one of the things that I also want to point out here is there's still a lot of improvement that we can make in terms of race, because we have so many individuals of color and minority groups who are not having the same access to jobs, to housing, to the supports that they need, because the system was created by individuals like me, white cisgendered men, oftentimes from a Christian background, who are able-bodied and have more parts of culture and society that are working for me than for these individuals who don't look like me, who did not have the upbringing that I do. Normal is one of those cultural dynamics and social dynamics that we really can't put our finger on. Because what's normal for me is not normal for someone else. What I have experienced growing up, the access to education and opportunities is not the same as for individuals who are a different sexual orientation or individuals who are minorities. So their normal is different from mine. With the clients that I work with, their normal is different from mine. So in the end, what is normal? Is normal some kind of ideal that everyone should be striving for? I don't think so. To say that something is normal oftentimes allows us to not look at it through the critical lens of how it could have been. With my clients, I do a lot of story work with them. We take a look at experiences in their upbringing, with their families, with their schooling, with their churches, whatever it is. Whatever helped bring them to where they are today, and with the maladaptive coping mechanisms that they have. And we take a look at it through the lens of that was normal for you, but how could it have been instead? In my story, this is my normal. I grew up with an identical twin brother and an older brother who was about 2.5 years older. I did not grow up with sisters. The prominent female influence in my home was my mom. My dad did a lot of work. He's a handyman. I'm almost 40 years old. And if something breaks, I'm still calling my dad. And he tries his best to help teach me how to do these things on my own. And there are just some things that my brain can't seem to wrap its head around. That's normal for me. I grew up in a family of 5 in a middle-class white neighborhood. That was my normal. I went to school where, when I think about my grade school years, I had very few classmates who were not white. That was normal for me. As I went into middle school, it was still relatively the same. There was probably more individuals who were minorities or individuals of color, but predominantly it was still white. In high school, there were more white young men and young women than those of color or some other nationality. That was my normal. My normal also involved not being accepted by a lot of my peers. I was bullied a lot because of my weight, because of how I chose to express myself, because I did not enjoy a lot of the stereotypical boy things. I enjoyed a good climactic battle with Star Wars or Ninja Turtles or something like that. I couldn't really get behind watching people play sports. The sport that I enjoyed playing was tennis. I was a much more empathetic kid. That was my normal. And a part of that empathy that was misunderstood a lot growing up is that made me a crybaby. My normal was not being accepted because I enjoyed having long hair, which was typically a feminine trait. My normal was being called gay, was being called homophobic slurs. I don't even want to say what many of them were that were said about me. My normal was living in a realm of fantasy within my own head because the fantasies were at least better than what my reality was. My normal, as much as my family loved me, my normal, especially from middle school onward, was feeling unsafe wherever I was. I have shared a story with some people as I've gone through my own work with my maladaptive coping mechanisms and just processing through my own story, that I only had one safe place in my house, and that was the bathroom. Because I could go in the bathroom to take a shower, and I could lock the door, and I could put a CD in the CD player and just crank up the volume and just lose myself within that solace. My normal was having my masculinity questioned on a near daily basis. That was my normal. Is that normal? Again, who's to define what's normal? That's not how it could have been, and that's not how it should have been. I was the subject of ridicule because of other people's insecurities. And I have my own insecurities that have contributed to the ridicule of others in my past. I'm not proud of it. I was doing the best that I could with all of the raging emotions that I felt I could not express anywhere. So when we talk about what is normal, when we just talk about normal in general, I often look at my clients' stories and I will point out how they were emotionally neglected by someone. Maybe it's a parent who was distant. Maybe it was a parent who would just come home from work and was so exhausted that they would just completely check out. They were in survival mode. I remember hearing a story of this one man when he was a teenager. He was so desperate to have a father figure in his life who could show him and instruct him on the changes that were taking place in his body as he was going through puberty, that he had to teach himself how to shave because he did not have a father figure who was present to be able to do that. And he cried the first time he ever shaved because it was such an emasculating experience for him to have to figure that out on his own. And he so desperately craved that kind of attention from a father. That was his normal. That was not my normal. My dad taught me how to shave. And I had that influence in my life. When we talk about normal, what I like to do is break down this stigma that this is just how life is supposed to be. If we don't do that, we are going to perpetuate the exact same normal with others. Is it normal for you to have a difficult time retaining or even starting friendships, that's something that can continue on throughout your entire life. If the thoughts and the beliefs that make you think and believe that you just can't maintain friendships, that you're just not a good friend, or people just don't like you, that will continue unless those are addressed. Is it your normal to hook up with people and sleep around in a desperate bid to try and find some kind of connection, or maybe go so far as to say that this is being used in an effort to validate yourself, validate your masculinity, your femininity? If that's your normal, it doesn't have to be that way. Is it your normal to just sit quietly in a meeting, maybe even a business meeting, where there are powerful voices that are just taking over the conversation, and you don't feel like you have anything that you can say, there's nothing you can do, and therefore you're powerless in how to direct this conversation? If that's what you think and believe about yourself, then that's going to perpetuate. And that is something that you can also teach to others, so that they themselves begin to think that they are also powerless. Or maybe that they have more power because they're able to easily manipulate, or no, not manipulate, I don't like that word for this example, but they are more easily able to speak up for themselves because you remain quiet. Is it your normal that you have to go out and find some kind of substance like alcohol or some kind of illicit drug just in order to handle the experiences around you? It doesn't have to be that way. If those are your normals, or if your normal is something that I didn't even talk about, because again, who is to say what is normal? Your life experiences are creating your normal. The thoughts and the beliefs that you have about yourself and about others are creating your normal. We don't have to stay within this normal, especially if it's something that's unhealthy. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up that one of the things about changing our normal is it's hard work. In fact, I feel like I say this on almost every single podcast. It is hard work to make these changes. Why is it such hard work? Because our brains are much more comfortable with what is normal now than making a change, even if it's for the better, to have a different future. And it all starts up in here, in our mind. It starts with the thoughts that we are thinking. It's what our inner dialogue is telling us about. It's what are the driving beliefs that are preventing us from taking the steps that we need to take. So what is your normal? Because I can guarantee that your normal can be better. In fact, I would even hazard a guess that if you're listening to this podcast, then your normal can definitely be better. Because we're talking about becoming the heroes of our stories. If you are not the hero of your story, then your normal can definitely be better. How do we make these changes? These changes come with intentionality and mindfulness. We have to become aware of what the thoughts are that we're thinking that are driving the beliefs, or the beliefs that are driving the thoughts. We have to become aware of how we are navigating our lives and where those came from. I've been telling several of my clients lately, as we've been just talking about the norms that they grew up with, that no one was born believing that they were a worthless piece of garbage or that they couldn't achieve anything. In fact, you take a look at most kids as they are playing, and they feel like they can achieve anything. So these thoughts and these beliefs, they were taught to us. And that's the sad part. These beliefs that are driving our thoughts and how we view ourselves, they were taught to us by others. I believed that there was something inherently wrong with me as a person, especially in terms of my masculinity, because I had so many people telling me that I wasn't man enough because I showed emotions, because I cried, because I had long hair when I was a teenager, and therefore that made me a homosexual in some form or fashion, or that I had a desire to be a girl or a woman. Those were not messages that I came into this world with. They were given to me by others. So we will need to discover where these thoughts and these beliefs come from. And we need to start unraveling them for what they are. Most of these are just bald-faced lies. Take a look at some of the things that you say about yourself, or that you believe about yourself. Where did they come from? Did they come from a parental figure in your life? Did they come from a teacher? Did they come from a coach? Did they come from siblings, extended family? Did they come from peers? There are some more recent that maybe came from a boss or a coworker, or maybe even a relational partner. Where did they come from? And ask the question, are they true? Are these thoughts, are these words, are these beliefs true? The thoughts and the beliefs that were driving me to my maladaptive coping mechanisms, all of them are false. They're all lies. And yet I chose to believe them as truth. Why? Because that's what was normal. This is something that is going to take time. This is something that for many of us, we're going to need some professional help. There is a reason why I still meet with my therapist every other week, because I still have things that I'm working through and I need some professional help. This is why I have individuals who are reaching out to me in order to help them process their stories. Oftentimes, for us to break free from what is normal is we need to have someone who is not exposed to that normal, or who has done work on their own normal in order to point out the flaws of your normal. And then we have to do the hard work of making those changes. We have to change what we think. We have to change our beliefs in order for us to change the trajectory of our future and to become the heroes of our own stories. We will need to change these thoughts and these beliefs. There is no getting around it. I wish that I could give you a simple formula and say, if you do this, if you follow these 5 steps, then you will be able to be rid of whatever it is that is ailing you. I wish I could say that, but I just can't. That's not the truth. We did not get where we are today, where our normal is normal, through following 5 simple steps that created what we are. We got here through years of priming, of conditioning, of messaging, and it's going to take time for us to unravel that. It's old programming, and it's going to take time to get new programming in there, and first we have to uninstall the old programming. I encourage you to find someone that you can trust who can help you dive into your story. This is something that I do on a daily basis. If you're interested in seeing what it's like to dive into your story, then you can schedule a free 50-minute one-on-one call with me. We can see what that's like. I'm happy to help anyone who is experiencing some struggle in their life that is holding them back, and seeing how we can work through it, not around it, but through it, so that you can change who you are, how you believe about yourself, and how you think about yourself. And if not me, then find someone that you trust. It can be a spiritual mentor. It can be a therapist. It can be a friend. It can even be a family member. But find someone who can help you unravel your normal so that you can create a much healthier new normal. And that is what normal is. It's something we can't pin down. It's something that is different for each person. As I shared, I'm an identical twin. He and I have completely different normals, even though genetically we're identical. We've had different experiences. Genetically speaking, there is nothing different about us, and yet there is so much that is different about us now. It is my sincerest hope that you are able to find the support that you need in order to unravel your normal so that you can find a new, healthier normal. Healthier normal in your thought life, in your beliefs, in your relationships. And until next time, live strong for today. Thanks so much for watching or listening to this podcast. If you like what you're hearing, then give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future uploads. If you are interested in working with me, then take a look in the description where you can find my website or a link just to schedule a free 50-minute one-on-one call with me. Looking forward to talking with you soon.